Hello friends, welcome back to Feni for the Soul. Today we have a very special guest. We are going to be speaking to Divyanshu Ganatra, who is from Pune and India's first blind solo paragliding pilot. He achieved this feat in 2014 and subsequently he has tandem cycled to Khardungla Pass. He's climbed the Mount Kilimanjaro in Kenya, Tanzania border, and he's even run marathons. Now, his Adventure Beyond Barriers Foundation, this organization helps persons with disabilities do all this and more, including rappelling and so many adventure activities. ABBF, his organization, during the COVID pandemic, the 2 years of the pandemic, did a lot of the excellent social work also in Pune and Maharashtra. And today they are conducting vocational courses for persons with disabilities. So it's a very exciting person we're going to meet. So sit back and enjoy this video story. So good afternoon and welcome, Divyanshu.
Thank you, Rahul. It's amazing. It's amazing to reconnect like this. And even more amazing to reconnect after 25 years, because I still remember you clearly as being amongst the very first journalists who had covered me about 25 years ago. Seems like so long ago. And yet like yesterday.
But Divyanshu, I must remind you that in all the other, though I might have done the early stories on you, we kept in touch and kept doing stories with you all the time. In all my years of journalism in Pune, we have done stories on you and your organization. So I'm so happy to do this interview. So without much ado, I think I'm going to kick off with the questions. So the very first question, Divyanshu, to you is that when you turned completely blind at age 19. What exactly happened? How did that happen? And that tragedy happened. And how did you come to terms with this challenge?
The very first thing is, no, it's not a tragedy. It may seem so at the time. It was just an unfortunate event, but it's not a tragedy. Disability does not mean suffering, and I can tell you that with the most certainty that it's not suffering. How did it happen? Well, it can happen to anybody. It just happened to me because I was detected with glaucoma, which is the second largest cause for blindness around the world. And it's rare in younger age. Juvenile glaucoma is rare. In my case, I had juvenile glaucoma that was asymptomatic. I was detected with it when I was about 17. I could still see quite a bit, almost 50% or more. I lost about 50% sight around in the 2 years' time, despite surgeries and medication and all of that. There's no cure for it. And then at 19, I just lost my sight completely because the pressure inside my eye was 6 times that of normal, and it snapped my optic nerve. So my optic nerve just snapped. And that's it. That's how I woke up blind one morning.
Wow. And so how did you your initial years, meaning I think this leads us to the next question. You picked up the threads quickly and started a ITES company, even when you were 19. How did that happen, and what were the learnings?
It happened out of my stubbornness, honestly. Because when I went for rehab, I thought that I'll learn the ways of the blind, I'll learn how to deal with this and stand on my feet. And when I went to a premier rehab, they told me the best you can do is make chalk or cane furniture or become a telephone operator. Nothing wrong with any of those choices, nothing wrong with being a telephone operator. It's just that I felt I could do better. And way back then, IT was coming up, and that was a bright future ahead for that. And I said, why not IT? Why not do something that has future in it? I don't see anybody using chalk or cane furniture. So why not computers? And they said, well, you're blind, you can't see the screen, so you can't do this. And while they had a technical, they did have a technical challenge, or it was right technically, it was wrong from the basis of them saying, this is my reality and I need to accept that. And I couldn't let somebody else decide for me what I can or couldn't do. So I said, well, if you can't teach me, then that's fine, but you can't decide for me. I came back from there. I didn't complete my rehab. It was a terrible, terrible experience. Sadly, things haven't changed much, honestly, slightly, but not much. And I went to other coaching classes and institutes that were mushrooming and popping up. And I said, will you teach me? And there was nobody to teach me. So I had the only choice. I had two choices. Either I could quit and say, hey, there's nobody to teach me. I can't see the screen. So, well, but the other choice I had was I still had a brain on my shoulders, or a little bit of it, and I could use that so I could learn myself. I had everybody around me who was sighted. My friends were sighted. And that's how I learned. I just learned on my own, and was fortunate to get my first break with Data Pro Information Technologies, and started in web communication, and back then internet wasn't there yet. We were still working on communication technology, and then forayed into internet and stuff. Then forayed into man-machine interfaces. Yeah, that's how I started. I said that's really how I started.
Wow. And what were the big learnings for you? Because you also had a team, so you paid salaries.
Yes. I was doing quite well. In fact, I did that for about 6 years or then doing very well for myself. I had a good career, I had a good career prospect ahead of me. But honestly, we also started teaching blind people how to use computers. We then got screen reading softwares. Lots of things changed in that 6 years in terms of technology. And we did train quite a few. And I said, well, two things happened. One while programming machines, I started reading up about the human brain, because that's what you're trying to emulate. We're trying to emulate the human brain. And I just fell in love with the human brain. And I said, this is more fascinating. This is so amazing. That what if we can rewire and reprogram the brain instead of a dumb terminal? If we can rewire the brain. And I said, that's what I want to study. That's what I want to learn. And that's how I then decided to pursue my course in psychology and cognitive neuroscience. And I quit. I said, I quit as in I still dabble in technology quite a bit, but as a career, I changed tracks. I said, I want to go back to college. I want to study this because this is the most awesome thing ever. And I'm glad I did that, because I still am in love with this little piece of machine on our shoulders. It's incredible. There's something new every single day.
Just to remind everyone, Divyanshu is India's first, blind solo paragliding pilot. And let's see a video and then get into a discussion with Divyanshu.
What I like about Divyanshu is first thing that he's a fun guy. He's not very serious about things. He's fun-loving. He's not like ambitious or I have to do this somehow. Desperate to do this. So that takes a whole load away, from me as an instructor. You feel light. You feel supported. So Divyanshu is going to do his solo flight today, and it's going to be very interesting, something very special, something very human, something like like somebody climbs the Mount Everest for the first time, so the others can.
Fantastic. Hearty congrats
Thank you,
for
Ram.
something that happened in 2014. But it's absolutely the building blocks on which you have built this wonderful organization, Adventures Beyond Barriers. So, Divyanshu, before we come to the other achievements, tell us how you thought of paragliding and solo paragliding, and how did you tell us about the nitty-gritty?
Right. So Rahul, I think everybody listening to this, or even you can ask yourself this, everybody as a child has looked up to the sky and dreamt what it would be like to fly, right? All of us. We've at least once dreamt of being in the big blue. And then we grow up, we get deconditioned, we get conditioned, we get told, oh, you can't be a pilot, or you can't have looked at your marks, or it's too difficult, it's too dangerous, all kinds of things. And we just simply grow up and those dreams that we had go away. We stop dreaming those dreams. And for me, that dream continued. Blindness was just something that happened along the way. But that dream just never went away. And I continued to ask myself that there is no evidence that blind people can't fly. Just because I'm blind, where is the evidence that you can't fly? So I said, why not? It should be possible. And it took me 7 years, Rahul, 7 years of asking 3 instructors every single day. Until Avi finally, I met Avi and the rest is history, but it took me 7 years. It's extremely easy to fly. There is really nothing. Aircrafts are designed to fly. But finding an instructor who would believe was the tougher part. And it's really, flying is really easy. It's not that difficult. I have an amazing team. And we really trust each other with our lives. And it's not metaphorical, it's literal. We trust each other with our lives. Because anyone makes a mistake, I'm dead. But this ain't no games. This is for real. But 1, we trust each other. 2, we train. And 3 is just to believe. But at the same time, you don't have any baggages. You're ready to go.
Yeah. Divyanshu, I'm just tempted to ask you a question because, all I have done is a tandem flight, in Panchgani, jumping off a cliff. So in this one, where you went solo, this is opposite the Tung, is the Pauna backwaters. Yeah.
Right.
So you go over the Pauna lake. And my curiosity, and I'm sure our audience will also have the same question. How do you come back like a homing pigeon back to, the cliff, to the plateau? So what was the drill, that made you get into that flight path back?
2 things. 1, I'm still in charge. I'm still controlling the aircraft. Yeah. And when you can control the aircraft, and I like paragliding largely because it's by feel. There's no instrument. It's largely by feel. You're feeling the thermals. You're feeling the wind conditions. You're controlling your aircraft. And like all pilots, I had radio communication with the ground. So we had a ground crew. We had launch crew. And I was given directions over the radio.
Wonderful. Yeah. So that you could, guide the chute in a particular manner to come, back to home base. Fantastic. So thank you for that. Divyanshu, I want to move now. This achievement of yours, where you made history, spurred you on to start Adventures Beyond Barriers.
Yes.
And so what was the key objective of ABBF? Why did you start it in the first place?
So Rahul, I probably had lived about 20 odd years of my life, half and half. Like I'd lived 20 years as a sighted person, lived 20 years as a blind person. And I realized that the biggest challenge for my community of people with disability is not disability per se. it is it's disability is just a medical condition. The fact that I can't see is just a medical condition. But my handicap is the fact that we don't have accessible education. We don't have accessible books. We don't have accessible ramps. We don't have accessible transport. All of these are attitudinal barriers, the way we have created society. The social construct, not the medical construct. The social construct is the real handicap. And we all are responsible, you, me, everybody, we all are responsible for the world that we create and shape. But unfortunately, it's these social handicaps, it's these attitudinal barriers that keep us isolated, that don't give us opportunities, that make us invisible, and also perpetuate a lot of stereotypes and stigma. So when I did this flight, for me, it was just out of my sheer love, and just because I love outdoors and I love to do these things. But when I started getting a lot of mail and congratulatory messages from all over the world, for me, it was, what has changed? While all these people are congratulating me, has that changed anything for my community? I would be looked at as a freak show and as an exception and written off. But that doesn't change the perception. That doesn't change the attitude that the larger society holds towards my community. But at least it got people to notice. And what if we had thousands of blind pilots? Then that would be a norm. And that was one big thing, that it wouldn't remain to be inspiring if there were thousands of people who were doing it, if there were thousands of blind people doing it. The other thing was that I realized that when you play together, it builds empathy. When you play together, you learn more about a person in an hour of play than a year of conversation. And if I get people with and without disability to just come and engage in outdoor adventure sports, then that would change people's beliefs, that would change people's mindsets and attitudes towards disability. And it's these same people from the mainstream community who hold influence, who are CEOs and MDs and HR and software engineers and architects, who now will know somebody with a disability, would have a friend with a disability, and can do so much more by doing what they're doing. If you're an architect, you now realize the importance of accessible buildings. If you're a CEO, you go back to your organization and say, hey, why can't we hire these people? Because this is a huge untapped talent pool. Or if you're a business house, you realize the potential of 1.3 billion people who are not looked at as consumers. There's huge amount of things that can happen, that can change. And it can all happen through sport, because sport can unite people, it can bring hope where there was despair. And it also speaks to people in a language that they understand. So that's how it all came together.
Wow.
It's like 20 years of my work in changing beliefs, in working on beliefs and cognition, my love for sport, and my strong purpose to make a difference for my community. Because at the end of the day, I still know that I'm extremely privileged. I have health, I have education. Somebody has to do the hard work. So it's just my duty to do this. So that's how it just came together. And it's been amazing. It's been amazing.
Yeah, amazing, really, the journey. So I wanted to ask you, among the many wonderful activities that ABBF has done, what I'm picking up two, and that is, one is the tandem cycling expeditions to Khardungla, which is the highest motorable road in the world. So, 20,000 feet. So tell us a little about how that idea came up, and I'll show some visuals as you speak, Yeah.
Right. So I loved cycling as a child. Wherever I went, cycle went with me, and then I went blind and I couldn't cycle anymore. Until in 2016, my friend from Germany she got me a second-hand tandem cycle. And this tandem cycle is meant for two. So there is a sighted captain in front and there's a blind stoker behind. And that was amazing because I could cycle again and I could feel the same thrill and adrenaline. And it was just amazing to get back on the saddle. And in 2016, then we said, hey, why not? There was a friend of mine who said, I'm going to cycle from Manali to Khardungla. I'd never been there. And I said, great, let's go together. And then in the end, he dropped out, but me and my captain ended up doing this in 2016. And that was an amazing ride. And I said, hey, this is another sport that is not there in our country. And we can get this sport to lakhs of people in India. This is a great way to get blind, to come outdoors, to play as equals with other people and do stuff as equals. And then after 2016, we went there every year. Sometimes we went there twice a year, doing this route from Manali to Khardungla. And it didn't matter if you were blind, it didn't matter if you're a single-handed rider, it didn't matter if you're amputee, double amputee, cancer survivor, 70-year-old, 15-year-old, woman, doesn't matter. We've taken all of them and everybody has completed this ride that most people believe is only meant for professional riders. A lot of our riders started cycling just 3 months before we started this expedition. And it's been now 2022 and we have over 300 tandem cycles across the country. We have thousands of blind people, amputee cyclists doing cycling regularly. Some of them are now into endurance cycling. We train one blind person to become an Ironman. We had somebody doing high altitude endurance cycling. We do technically Cliffhanger, which is Pune to Goa non-stop 650 kilometers, all kinds of things. So it's amazing. And it all started with somebody donating a tandem cycle for 200 pounds.
What an amazing story, really.
And yeah, every year Manali to Khardungla is a flagship event because it's life-changing. It's not just cycling, Rahul. For us, cycling is just a tool. It's the community we build. It's the dialogue that happens. It's the getting to know of one another as people. It doesn't matter if I have one arm or no eyes. It doesn't matter. We still have the same aspirations. We still have the same desires. We still have the same goals and dreams, and we're just people like everybody else.
Yeah, true. Fascinating, really. So I move on to Mount Kilimanjaro, and how did that happen? Because now I understand you all started with small treks to begin with, but then you said, let's go and climb the biggest mountain in Africa. And, I've got some visuals to show, but yeah, tell us the story.
So we work in 5 verticals. We do mountaineering, we do scuba diving, cycling, marathons, and flying. We did a lot of treks here. Sayadris is our backyard. We did treks to Everest. And then one fine day we were just talking and we said, hey, why not Kilimanjaro? And we said, hey, why not? It's just as simple as that. It just somebody pops up and it's the tallest freestanding mountain in the world. It has 5 climate zones. It's the only place where you will experience all 5 climatic zones. And we said, that'd be great. So let's do this. And it was crazy. It was crazy because I cycled from Manali to Khardungla, took a flight, and reached Tanzania, reached the base of Kilimanjaro, and then started this summit. It was crazy. I wouldn't recommend it.
Fascinating. Because so how was the experience of climbing? Because I just showed a visual of you on a very rocky patch.
Right.
Yeah. And then I believe it was a Indo-Israeli kind of expedition because you were 4 blind climbers from ABBF India, and there were quite a few Israelis, right?
That's right. We get people from, interestingly, we've had Israelis come and participate with us every year. We had people from South Africa, we have people from USA, Canada, Australia, all participating with us each year. But Israelis are a different bunch altogether. They're amazing in terms of their strength. They're amazing in sport and attitude. It's been fun working with my climbing together with my Israeli friends. So one of my Israeli friends, Uri, who lost his sight, he was a battle tank commander. He lost his sight because in a missile attack, and he was flying over Kilimanjaro one day, and somebody told him, "Hey, we're flying over the tallest freestanding mountain," and he said to himself, "I want to be on top of that. I want to climb that." So that's how Uri and the bunch came over, and we said, "Hey, that's fun. Let's do this together." There's also cultural exchange. We get to learn so much from them. They get to know us. So it was amazing. It was summit day was tough. Summit day was really tough. I think you will see that in the photographs. I have a pretty lousy face. I was pissed off.
True.
It was summit day was tough.
Yeah, I'm pointing the arrow to where you're sitting. So, and I'm saying, I'm telling the audience, that this is not particularly a smile.
Yeah. Because in my head I'm like, it's all dandy. You get me up here. How do we still have to go down, right?
I know. Yeah.
And we had very bad weather. We had very
rock face kind of thing. I mean, those rocks, and you are, that there's an image I showed, and then you have to come back the same way.
Yeah. And you need to conserve energy, because if you reach the top, it's only halfway there. You still got to go down. But most people put in all their energy going to the top, and then they're like, "Oh no."
There's no chopper to take us back down.
I know. But yeah, Kilimanjaro was tough on the summit day. Rest was good, but summit day, the weather was really bad, and water had completely frozen. All our liquids were frozen, so we didn't have any liquids. So it was a little tough. It was a very long summit to climb.
I finally come to this very important topic of, we were discussing a couple of days back, where you said that blind people need to first become mobile, independent and mobile. They should learn independent mobility first. That's important. And I believe certain NGOs and organizations teach you that, in a short course. So you must tell us why that is critical and important, and the wonderful vocational skill training that ABBF has started.
Well, I'll answer the first one, Rahul. I feel in today's, I live independently, and I've lived independently and by myself for over 20 years now. And I don't miss seeing it all. There's nothing I can't do at home. There's nothing when I feel, oh my God, I need somebody to help me. Or just it doesn't happen. It just doesn't happen. So I believe blindness is no more an excuse. Absolutely not. You can do everything. Every damn thing. But you just need to pick up your cane, you need to pick up your mobility skills, you need to learn your independent living skills. These are critical. Otherwise, you'll forever be dependent on somebody else. And I refuse to say that people with disability are dependent on somebody else, especially blind people. No reason for them to. They can cook on their own, they can live on their own, they can go around the world on their own. And I can say that because I do that, and I know it's possible. It's possible even to do that after 20 years of seeing. So there is no excuse. There's just no excuse in my books that, oh, because I'm blind, I need this, I need that. Yes, sometimes you need help. Everybody needs help. Then ask for it, get that help. But that's no excuse for not doing something. So my message to everybody is really, get off to your back ends, and you might fall, Rahul, you might fall, you might get hurt. That's okay. You might break a bone or two. But it's better than just sitting in a room. And this is also to parents of people who've just gone blind, because a large chunk of blindness, almost 80% of blindness, is adventitious blindness, which means that we go blind later in life. So especially for these people, sometimes parents are overprotective. नहीं नहीं इनको लग जाएगा, नहीं ये कैसे जाएंगे, या अकेले कैसे जाएंगे. That's just more disabling. That's the real handicap. You treat that person just like you would treat anybody else. Do not make excuses basis their disability. And so that's what I say. It's available everywhere. Lots of NGOs doing a good job with these skills. They run short courses, 2-month, 3-month courses for you to learn this. And walk with pride with that kid. Take pride in walking with that kid. There is no shame. And to your second question of vocational skilling, how did we end up getting into that? We didn't really, honestly, it wasn't something that we wanted to do. But then for me, it's always that if nobody else is doing it, and despite all efforts, that change is not happening, then I need to do something to bring about that change. And especially during the pandemic, a lot of people lost their jobs. A lot of people with disability work in entry-level jobs. They work in logistics, they work in warehouses, they work in packaging and entry-level jobs. But with the 2 years of pandemic, what has happened is there's been tremendous spurt in automation and robotics and AI. And most of your entry-level jobs have either disappeared or fast disappearing, or will end up disappearing in the next 3 to 5 years. And when these jobs are, I mean, there's no future in these jobs, then why train them in that? What's the point? We need to think, what can I skill them in? And you can't think that you can get everybody to do higher level cognitive skills and Python programming and learn AI. That's just not possible for everybody. So then my criteria was simple. My criteria is what kind of skills can people with disability learn where their education doesn't come in the way, where they can be 10th or 12th grade pass, and that's okay. The second thing is language should not be a barrier. That, you know, a lot of people say in corporate, of course, English is compulsory or English is very important. They need to learn to communicate in English. And almost 80% of my community speaks vernacular. They don't speak English, or they don't know how to speak good English, but that becomes a barrier. So for me, a job skill where that's not a barrier. Third, it should not have a threat of AI and automation, at least for the next decade. And fourth, there should be economic growth. Because what happens today, if a corporate hires somebody in housekeeping for 10,000 rupees a month, the average salary is good, 10,000 rupees. The salary remains the same 10 years later. Nobody's going to give me 1 lakh rupees for housekeeping 10 years later simply because I have 10 years experience. It doesn't happen. But 10 years later, getting 10,000 rupees is as good as not getting anything at all. So there has to be economic growth. These are the criteria. If they fit into this criteria, then that vocational skill makes sense. And that's how then we experimented with multiple things and found one which we're currently piloting and having very good results is cycling is booming. Cycling is something as a sport will continue to grow and really picked up, especially after the pandemic. But today's pro cycles do not have equivalent mechanics to repair them, to service them. In fact, we anyways had a very, very huge shortfall of professional certified mechanics. There were none in the country. So we tied up with a trainer from Barnett Institute in USA. That's the premier institute for pro cycle mechanics certification. And we started training people with disability in learning how to become pro cycle mechanics. We started a certification program and seeing some amazing results. We already have 18 letters of interest from all over the country, and it'll only grow. So, so we want to look at these kind of vocational skills where they thrive, they economically thrive, their disability doesn't come in the way, and there is a lot of demand for it.
Fantastic. Excellent. So, you know, I mean, on that happy note, you know, thank you, Divyanshu, for spending this valuable time with us. And, you know, it's such a big learning, really, not only for me, but I'm sure for the entire audience, you know. So all the best, Divyanshu. Let's keep in touch.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Bye. Bye.
Bye.
And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to this channel. Thank you.